There we go. Hello, everyone. My name is Adina Wilson. I am the Classified Staff Council Chair, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to our first open forum meeting, which we will be focusing on our fantastic Ombuds Office. And I would like to kick everything over to Tafara Rashal to introduce our guest speaker.
Okay. Is Dr. Schwartz in already?
Yes.
Okay, good. I can't see from my end. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Tafara Rashal, and also a part of being the Classified Staff Council. I am also the Administrative Assistant for the Ombuds Office. So I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Schwartz. So as our Ombuds, Dr. Schwartz directs the office and serves UNLV's 10,000 academic, administrative, classified, temporary student, and part-time employees. And he has helped many people at the university, and now he's ready to help you. So without further ado, Dr. Schwartz.
How about now? Okay, so thank you, Tafara, very much for that introduction. I want to talk a little bit about the office, what we do, and what it all means. So first of all, an organizational ombuds, which is the model that we use, is essentially a designated neutral person who helps people solve their problems informally. Now, what does informally mean? Does that mean that we wear like jeans or something like that? Not exactly. It really means that we do this outside of the formal processes for discipline and for grievances and things like that. So there is no record. It's not really part of that formal process. Also, and maybe more importantly for a lot of people, is that it preserves confidentiality. Actually, hang on a second. I'm going to share my screen here really quickly. This should make it easier to see. There we go. Can you guys see my screen? Cool. So basically, an organizational ombuds is a designated neutral person who helps people solve problems and is confidential. Outside of a few very narrow exceptions, for example, if somebody shows that there's the imminent risk of serious harm, I do not tell anybody what we talked about or that we even talked. Somebody might have their mic open because I'm hearing somebody walking around. Okay. Who can use the office? This is a great question that I've gotten a bit. And essentially, it's anybody who gets a paycheck from UNLV. So that includes classified staff, but also all of our other coworkers, admin faculty, academic faculty, and all the different kinds of academic faculty in every different flavor we can imagine, including people working temporarily on an LOA, and also including student employees. Yeah, someone has their mic open. Also including student employees, but only for work issues, not for student conduct issues or academic integrity issues. We don't do that. Also, we're there for supervisors, deans, vice presidents, leaders to talk over their issues too. So we're there for everybody. Now, what do? Well, the first and most important thing we do is listen to people. A lot of times people at UNLV feel that nobody's listening. Well, I'm here and I am listening. Next, we do a lot of education and coaching for people. And this ranges from just telling people what their options are if they want to advance something, or helping them with conflict coaching, having group sessions for coaching or for training or discussions or anything like that. Third thing we do is pretty exciting. It's mediation. And we have a pool of mediators, and this essentially gives people a structured but informal chance and also confidential chance to resolve their problems rather than going to a formal dispute resolution process like employee relations. And it really is designed to help people solve their problems together rather than having a third party tell them what to do. Next thing we do is we advocate for change as we see things happening across campus that indicate systemic issues, we will bring that to the attention of campus leadership. Okay, now, we also do some fun stuff that I would really love to get the Classified Staff Council involved in. Right now, we have 12 different programs. I thought of a new one this morning, but I forgot about it already, so I've got to write it down next time I think about it. And a lot of them are about how people approach conflicts. We have a program about conflict drivers that explains the 5 most common reasons that people have conflict. We also have a session on mediation and how that works. We do conflict coaching. We have a session, which is my favorite, and I think Tafara likes this one too, where you take an online survey that tells you what your preferred conflict style is, and then you do some interactive role plays to look at how effective that could be. And we can talk about having difficult conversations or having that facilitated discussion with an entire unit. So that's some of the stuff we do. So what don't I do in this office? And there's a lot of things here too. Number one thing is that I don't decide who's right or who's wrong. You know, that's not the purpose of an ombuds, to be an extrajudicial authority. You know, again, we try to help people find solutions that work for them. Next thing, unlike Detectives Freeman and McNulty from The Wire, I do not investigate wrongdoings. There are other people on campus who do that. Next, unlike Saul Goodman, who we see here, you might know from Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, I don't advocate for individuals. And I would love if somebody in the Q&A section could ask me about that, where I can explain that more. But really, the office is there to advocate for everybody, not just for individuals. Last thing that I don't do is I don't get to change federal law, state policy, the Board of Regents handbook, UNLV bylaws, or overrule decisions that other people make. Presidents, vice presidents, provosts, vice provosts, directors, I don't get to do any of that. But I'm available to talk with you and help you find solutions for your problems facing at UNLV. A lot of ways people can get in touch with the office. They can call 5-1823. They can email us at ombuds@unlv.edu with the note that if you want to speak with me about an issue, don't put the issue in the email. Just say, I want to make an appointment to see you. And you can explain it to me in person or remotely, however we meet. You can also visit us at FDH 165. We have an online reporting form where you can, if you don't want to use email, you can use that to get in touch with us. And you can use our Google Calendar functionality. So I would now like to take questions, and I will stop sharing so we can see each other again. And I'd love it if you folks could turn on your screens so I'm looking at human beings and not names. That would be really good. I'd love some questions. Anything you want to know at all about anything. I don't know if you can voice in or, oh, okay, great question. What types of cases can be filed with the ombuds and ombudsman? Excellent question, Deborah, and congratulations. Basically, a lot of times people have conflicts at UNLV. And if it involves some kind of negative treatment on the basis of a protected class, it would go to Title IX. If it involves some kind of violation of university policy or state policy, it would go to employee relations. For everything else, people can come to the ombuds. So this includes things like regular interpersonal conflicts. You know, my supervisor and I don't get along, disagreements about the scope of the job. You know, you could talk about that. Allegations of unfairness and scheduling. I mean, these are all things that we can talk about. And essentially, what? And basically, okay. Basically, pretty much anything that's happening at UNLV that is preventing you from being as happy and productive as you can be. So those are the things that we will handle.
I have a question.
Excellent.
I know that you've been in this role only for a couple of months, but in that time, are there any patterns that you're seeing? But I don't know if that's something that you can disclose or not, but I would be curious if you're seeing larger patterns at UNLV now that you're in this new role.
Definitely, Kimberly, definitely. And there are, so the International Ombuds Association, which I'm a member of, and to whose standards I'm running the office, has a document that basically breaks down the different issues people could bring to an ombuds in different areas. So I see a lot of communication issues. I also see a lot of respect issues. You know, those tend to be the two biggest ones that I see. There are some pay and equity issues as well. There are some policy issues, but mostly it's dealing, and then there are some promotion issues, career development issues too. But mostly it's stuff, I would say communications and lack of respect are the two biggest issues that people raise. Okay, so question from Phil, is the ombuds like the HR mediators? How does it differ? Well, I can talk a little bit about this. So I believe I've never used an HR mediator, so I may be wrong, but from what I've read about it, it seems to me they seem to be more evaluative, or people will present, they're almost like an arbitrator. Does that seem right to you, Phil? That they're more like arbitrators, where they will tell you, this is what you're going to do. So people disagree about stuff. They take it to the arbitrator, and the arbitrator says, do this. Is that how they work? Okay. That can be effective in some areas. You know, so for example, that is a very good way to resolve a dispute over real estate or something like that, where somebody says the property is worth this much, another person says it's that much. You know, you can hire an arbitrator to tell you how much it's worth. For interpersonal issues and for things where people are going to continue to have a relationship, evaluative mediation like that isn't always the best solution. That's where facilitative comes in. And what we do for that is we have a pool of mediators, and the parties get to pick who they want to mediate. And they can also say, if they don't want somebody in the mediate to be there as a mediator, they can say, I don't want them. And we have 2 people mediate each case. And basically what the mediators do is they will help the parties establish the ground rules, and then just be there to sort of, you know, they're sort of like the referees to keep things on target and keep them focused. And it's pretty effective. You know, we've had some good successes with getting people together to talk in a neutral atmosphere. And the goal is that they themselves will come up with the solutions to the problems. So we had one last week, and there was basically a communication disagreement, and the parties figured out, well, here's how we need to do our communications from now on. We'll communicate in this way, as opposed to what we were doing. And that's really the goal. And again, it's nothing that would be, so it's not, it wouldn't be if somebody was accusing somebody of harassment or discrimination, you couldn't mediate that. But if you're just not getting along, it's really good for that. And again, the idea is to facilitate the process rather than have an outsider evaluate. Because a lot of times, you know, I know people do go to different places at UNLV trying to get satisfaction. And when one office doesn't do it, they might go to another, which is their right. And, you know, it's good that they're doing that. But I would find a lot of times if they're able to just sit down with a person and say, look, you know, this doesn't work for me, what we're doing, let's try it this way, that could be helpful. Does that answer your question, Phil? Or would you like to know more? Because I have a whole half-hour presentation about this I could do. While I'm waiting for him to respond, I want to answer Deborah's question. So we don't really investigate. So we don't do investigations. You know, we can gather information, but really, because the ombuds doesn't evaluate or arbitrate, you know, there's really nothing for me. Oh, excellent, Phil. There's really nothing for us. There's no reason that we would investigate. It's basically, and this is part of the office that some people have struggled with, but this is the way that these offices are run around the country and even around the world. It's not necessarily about being a fact-finding office where somebody says this happened and we'll find the truth of what happens. It's more about an office that helps people figure out how are they going to live tomorrow? What behaviors are they and the people around them going to change that can get them to make them get along better tomorrow? You know, and it's not that I don't care about justice and things like that. It's just that in a lot of these cases where there is no policy violation, there's no bias on the basis of protected class, it's very subjective and it's really hard to figure out what happened and who's at fault for something. So in these cases, it's tends to serve people a lot better if they could just focus on, okay, I know the bad stuff happened to me in the past. What can we do tomorrow to make it better? That's a general idea. Who has some other questions? Any questions about the International Ombuds Association and what they do?
I got a question.
Yes.
So you said, I'm sorry, I was a couple minutes late. I was starting an interview on another room.
Okay.
So you said that there's no reason to investigate the Ombuds office. It's not a fact-finding office. Is this Ombudsman's office under the legal department or under compliance, under what?
Nope. We're completely independent. So we report directly to the president. I don't report to legal. I don't report to HR. If somebody comes to see me, there's no record of it with legal or with HR. So we're really, you know, I would encourage people to come here first. You know, if you think you do want to file a complaint or you know somebody who wants to file a complaint, they lose nothing by coming to the ombuds first. You know, we're not an office of notice. So even if somebody says, I think I'm being harassed, unlike other people at UNLV who are mandatory reporters, according to our charter, we are not mandatory reporters. It specifically says we're not an office of notice. We don't accept notice under the Clery Act and things like that. So basically people can come and talk it over and, you know, I can help them see, well, here's the process for filing this complaint or that complaint. So that's a purpose. But yeah, we are not affiliated. We don't work for HR. I don't report to HR or to legal. I report directly to the president.
Okay, so in follow-up, as a follow-up question to that is, as an employee, they said that there's all these issues, something like protected class issues or sort of a discrimination or promotion or policy issues. We know policy issues would fall under probably compliance and legal. How are employees, how can we encourage employees, say like me or all of us present here, to actually go and see you for issues? Because there could be repercussions in the end. And we don't want to rock the boat. Anybody. We sometimes stay mum because we wanted to not be the one who's the outlier, saying, you know, you're not following this because you're a rebel. You don't want to do what's been done, even if it's for the good. And to approach the Ombuds office is going to be doing that. What's our protection?
Okay, Christina, there's a lot of protections. First of all, it's 100% confidential. Unless when people come here, there's 3 exceptions. Number 1, they say something that indicates there's the imminent risk of serious harm. So if somebody says, you know, I'm going to go home and end it all, or something like that, I would then obviously as an ethical human being, I would have to report that. I couldn't just let them go off and do that. Also, if somebody discloses unreported child abuse or unreported elder abuse, which isn't very likely that somebody would come into my office and tell me that, but if somebody does come in and say, for whatever reason, okay, in this program, in the preschool or something, kids are being beaten, I would definitely have to report that to Clark County, and I actually have the number for that. And the elder abuse, it's a Clark County thing, and that's a Nevada state thing. The imminent risk of serious harm is an ombuds profession thing. The child abuse and elder abuse is a Nevada state thing. As an employee, I am mandated to report that. Outside of that, I don't tell anybody what we talk about. Tafara, can you talk a little bit about that? Because you've been in the office for a while, and I think you have a good idea how this works. So I want you to chime in before I go on more about it.
Sure. So one of the biggest things a lot of people end up interacting with me first before they interact with Dr. Schwartz. And I make it very clear to everyone that your communication with me is 100% confidential. Your communication with the office is confidential. If you come here, we're not doing overlapping appointments and stuff so people can see you coming. Like, we really try our best to make sure that you feel comfortable with this. And we even are very flexible in how you meet Dr. Schwartz. If you would prefer to meet him via Zoom, or if you would just prefer a phone call, or if you want to come in person, if you don't want me to email you about your appointment, whatever you're comfortable with, that's what we want to make sure, because we want to make sure that you are absolutely assured of the confidentiality. And like Dr. Schwartz said, that's in our charter. So we go out of our way to make sure that you understand that unless you actually tell our office to disclose something, we absolutely will not.
Yeah, and again, another exception is if somebody says, I want you to disclose this. So for example, I've had some people who've contacted the office because they had trouble getting their pay. And I said, okay, can I have your permission to reach out to business affairs and try to find somebody to work on this for you? And they say, sure. And we do that, so that there's that. Also, basically, the people who come here, the reason why they come here is because they're guaranteed this confidentiality. If for some reason, so let's say your supervisor finds out that you went to the ombuds, and I want to make sure I have this right. So I want to pull this up in the charter, because this is in the charter, which was signed by the president, which was approved by legal. So this should be binding on us all. And let me find my charter. The office charter. Okay, this is under operations. Okay, authority and limits to authority. Okay, and that's in operations. And again, the president signed this. All members of the constituency served by the office should have the right to consult the office without reprisals. The university and its agents will not retaliate against individuals for consulting with the office. So if you do go to the office and somebody retaliates against you for that, they have violated the charter of the Ombuds Office. And I imagine there's repercussions for that. Again, I'm not an attorney, so I don't know what they are, but it clearly says here that this happens. And there's actually a really interesting case when we're putting together the charter. I read this. There's a case at the University of Mississippi where some people consulted the Ombuds Office. They were then targeted. The Ombuds was targeted, and they ended up all being completely vindicated because it was found that the university violated the charter. So, we could get there eventually. I also, when I speak with leaders, and a lot of times if I speak with a vice president or a dean, some of them want to know, well, can I find out if people came to see you about, our unit? And I'm like, look, you don't want to know, because it specifically says in the charter that we will not retaliate. And if you don't know, you can't retaliate. But if you do know, you could retaliate. So I'm not going to tell you if anybody from your unit came to see me. And they're usually okay with that. Once you put it in that way, it makes sense. But that's the whole thing. Do you have another follow-up question, Christina? Because those were good ones. Okay. Let me see.
No, thank you so much.
Okay.
That's explained it.
Great. But I mean, I would encourage everybody, and again, we work with people on a whole range of issues. Like I said, if there's anything that's keeping you from being as happy and productive here as you can be, and it can be interpersonal conflicts, but it doesn't have to be. It could be policies that you don't like. Again, one of the things I'm supposed to do, they use the phrase canary in the coal mine. So if people come to me and complain about a policy, that's when I go to campus leadership and say, well, this policy doesn't seem to be working. You know, I can't change the policy, but I can tell the campus leaders, well, it's not very popular. What other questions do people have about anything at all?
Dr. Schwartz, this is Dina Wilson, and I am the chair, and I get a lot of emails from the classified staff at large to our council email asking about policies, asking, I'm just going to throw one out there that's most recent, the syllabus becoming accessible. There was a stipend for faculty. A lot of faculty have passed that on to the AAs of the department, and the AAs aren't getting that stipend. Is there something that I should be telling them to better answer their questions?
Yes. So refer them to me. Have you reached out to online education for this?
I have sent emails, but I did
Okay.
not know where to start. So I just sent a whole bunch of emails to a whole bunch of places, hoping someone
Okay.
will answer.
We can talk offline about this.
Okay.
Because this is exactly the kind of thing that I love to help with. So, you know, I imagine there's a couple people in online education. You know, I have an idea of actually, I know exactly who I would start with for this. So yeah, we can talk about this.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah. And in general, if people are emailing you, please feel free to forward them to this office, because we are set up to address complaints and things like that. And we, you know, that's basically what we're here for. Again, the canary in the coal mine. So it's another way to get the message to campus leadership.
Fantastic. I love having you as that avenue to direct people towards.
Yeah. And again, because that's kind of what we're set up for. You know, I imagine you have a lot of stuff to do in your workday, and pretty much, you know, this is my job. Well, another thing, and I'm not, you know, I hesitate to say this, but Tavara will testify to the fact that if somebody wants to meet me and let's say they can't meet during working hours, I'm okay with staying a little bit late to do that, you know, or if somebody's a shift worker and doesn't get in until maybe 7 o'clock, we could figure out a way to make that work. I mean, preferably I wouldn't be staying here for 12 hours for my workday or whatever, but we'll figure out a way to make it work. You know, I'm pretty committed to that, because I think people deserve a place to go when they have issues.
I agree. Thank you.
Cool. Other questions? These are some really good questions too.
Anyone? Any type of question?
Because I've got a lot more I can say, but you know, it's no fun just like rambling on and on. But it was good. I mean, that was really good because I wasn't aware of that, but it does make sense if they're supposed to get stipends. Oh yes, excellent question, Christina. I will put the link in the chat right now. Let me open this up and it's right there. So that's the charter right there. And if you click in the PDF version, you can see the president's signature. But basically, another thing I want to talk about really quickly, unless somebody has a question.
I have a question, but it's,
oh, great.
So it's in the same realm as Dina, something
Okay.
that I've had part-time instructors and faculty come to me about.
Okay.
when we hire employees, there's no way for employees to identify as non-binary.
Okay.
And I've had multiple faculty members in our department that do identify that way, and then were unable to do so when they were hired. And I've approached a lot of different departments about this. I've approached HR, and one of the answers I've been given is that because of reporting that we do, data reporting, accreditation reporting, those reports don't pull non-binary, that because of that, when we're onboarding a new employee, that's not an option. However, the university also hasn't done anything else to assist employees who identify that way. Like, there are ways to input data. There are a lot of other ways that they could address this, right? But basically the answer has been shut down every time that I've asked it. And I kind of want to advocate on behalf of the faculty who've asked me about it. And like I said, I've gone to HR, I've gone to salary administration. I'd also brought this up during a town hall, I believe with President Whitfield, and nobody seems to be able to kind of have any interest in assisting those faculty. So, and that can be something that we talk about offline, and I can make an appointment with your office, but I don't know if other folks have had that issue as well.
Yeah, let's talk about that offline. So please make an appointment. And I can think, right away, I'm thinking one thing that we could do is look at other universities and see what they do. Look at other public R1 universities, because surely there must be a university somewhere that does this. I know we do get kind of hung up on how things are done in the state of Nevada. Maybe you can also look at our peer institutions in Nevada and see what they do, because I've got to think that UNLV surely isn't the only place with this. So there have to be other places that have done it before us. And if we have that makes it a lot easier, I think, saying, let's make this specific change. So yeah, but let's make an appointment. Let's talk about this.
Thank you.
Cool. Okay, other questions before I talk about the charter a little bit more? And let me just pull the chat up really quickly. There it is, just so I can see. Okay, so let me just talk about the charter a little bit. Basically, according to the International Ombuds Association, an ombuds office has to be 4 things to be considered an organizational ombuds. And that's, again, what we're striving for with this. Number 1, it has to be independent. So that means we don't report to HR, which we have covered in the structure of the office. Number 2 is that it has to be impartial. What that means is that the ombuds doesn't advocate for specific people. Although we do advocate for fair processes, my job is not to take sides or not to pick sides. Basically, the way I've heard it explained by other ombuds is that they like the term multi-partial, where basically we want the best outcome for everybody, not favoring one side or the other over the other. Other one is informal, which I've talked about a little bit, but that basically means if you come to talk to us, there is no record. And it's not, you can't use this as part of a disciplinary process. I know we're probably all familiar with the progressive discipline, and going to the ombuds isn't part of that. It's completely voluntary. I have had supervisors refer employees to me, but I always make it clear to them, this is completely voluntary, and you cannot negatively evaluate them for not talking to the ombuds. You absolutely cannot, just like you can't retaliate against them for visiting the ombuds. You also can't retaliate against them for not visiting the ombuds. It's completely voluntary and informal, so it's not part of a formal structure. And the last thing is confidentiality, which again, as I hope we've made clear, both Tafara and I, we take that very seriously. And the way I see it, my way of looking at it is I can't always control how smart I am, how much I know about policies, some of them I'll have to look up, but I can control keeping my mouth shut. So it seems like that's my minimum bar for am I doing a good job is, did I make things worse? did I run my mouth and betray confidentiality? So on that, I feel pretty confident that I will not do that. Let's see. So other stuff, again, the structure of the office, we have me, the ombuds, we have an ombuds panel that has representatives from all over campus. And that basically is a way to keep me accountable, so I don't report to the VP for HR or to general counsel. So then how do you keep me accountable? How do you make sure that Tafara and I are doing stuff here? Well, we have the panel. And if you feel the office isn't serving the university the way it should, speak with somebody on the panel and they will bring it to our attention. And somebody else has their mic off, I think. Or could be hearing things. So we have the panel. We also have the campus mediators. And we even have some Boyd School of Law students who do this to get their pro bono hours. And again, that's all voluntary. Operations are pretty easy. Basically, we don't even have records. I don't have anything with your name on it. If you come see me, I do take notes on, I will, again, assign each contact a code from that IOA guidance document, but it doesn't have your name on it. And that's, again, just to track demographics and things like that. So it's very general. And it's at the level of the overall unit. So it would be something like business affairs or the College of Fine Arts, not a specific department. Okay. And yeah, if there's a conflict of interest, I will tell people there's a conflict of interest. Limits to the authority of the ombuds is kind of the biggest, one, just because there are a lot of limits. And again, the idea is to give people a very good idea. One of my favorite things that somebody has said to me so far is somebody came, and before I talk with people, I will read them kind of a disclaimer saying this is what we do and what we don't do, a lot of what I talked about. And he said, well, at least you're being honest with me about what you're not going to do. Other people promised me they would fix everything and they didn't do anything, but at least you're honest. I'm like, okay, well, again, I'll take that. That's good. But basically it does make sense because we don't make decisions. We don't make administrative decisions. We don't do that. Yep. Okay. Standards of practice. These are I talked about the standards of practice. And confidentiality is a big one. So yeah, there it is. What other questions do you have? I feel like I'm rambling, but I'm very excited about sharing this with everybody. Other questions?
Does anyone have any more questions for Dr. Schwartz? This has been a great informative meeting. Thank you so much.
I'm really glad to be here again. I mean, the basic message I want to get out is that anybody UNLV can come and talk to me. It's, there's really nothing to lose because it's not formal. It doesn't start an investigation. Your name isn't on anything. So again, if there's anything at all that you're aware of, whether it's something that affects you personally or just a trend that you see, let me know, because that's exactly what I'm here for.
I was just reading through the charter as you were, You are a hired employee. It's not an appointed position, correct?
I believe, I'm not sure the distinction between hired and appointed.
Now that I say it, neither do I, but
Oh, yeah.
No, I think we had, when you got hired, I remember there was a search and there was a forum and everything. So it was a standard hire.
okay.
Yeah, so just to, again, like probably to just give you some background. So I've been at UNLV for almost 21 years now. I was a faculty member and I decided to do this when the president said we're going to bring back the Ombuds Office. I got very interesting. I'd done training to be a mediator and I'd wanted to start an employee mediation program. And I saw this as being one way to do that. And that's how I got involved in ombudsing. And now I've taken a lot of professional development courses with the International Ombuds Association. I think Tafara can talk about some of those because it's been a lot of it. October was like, I don't even know how many hours I had. It was a lot. And I'm looking to get certified as a certified organizational ombuds practitioner. So yeah, I was hired. Yeah. Yeah, so it's a standard thing. Yeah, the president hired me. What other questions? Oh yeah, I guess finally the question just clicked for me. Yeah, it was a competitive search process of others, as the others have said. Definitely.
I have one more question, Dr. Schwartz. Being that this is a new restart of the Ombuds Office, what are the main challenges in that you face regularly, or those that come in contact with you, both ways?
Okay, so I think my challenges as the ombuds, I think communication is a big one because a lot of people have an idea of what the office is or what it does that isn't accurate just based on their perceptions, because it's not like, I mean, if you say we're hiring a chef, pretty much everybody knows what a chef does. You know, they cook or, you know, do a lot of stuff in the restaurant. If you say we're hiring an ombuds, I'm pretty sure most people couldn't tell you what that is. So I think a lot of what I am doing now is pretty much explaining what an ombuds does. Again, and it's not just my interpretation of it. This is going to the International Ombuds Association standards of practice and basically giving UNLV the same kind of ombuds office they have at Harvard or at other places, you know, other top universities around the country. So I think that's one of my challenges. I mean, the other issue again is some leaders might not be totally on board with how an organizational ombuds should work. So there's a lot of education there too for leaders about like, well, hey, this is why I can't tell you, you know, when somebody comes to see me, I then can't call you up and say, well, people are complaining about this, just because that's not what an organizational ombuds does. You know, and also explaining to them, you know, I'm not here to get people fired or something like that. And usually, again, my thing is I just want everybody to have their best outcomes. So I think that's the biggest issue. Like I said before, the biggest issues I see people bringing into the office tend to be around communication and supervision. There's a lot of that. There are some policy things, but it's usually personal communication issues, promotion issues, things like that. Just general, you know, I know my supervisor doesn't like me and I don't know why. Those kinds of things. But there's a little mix of everything. You know, again, even sometimes very mundane things like payroll, you know, again, something. What I tell people, so let's say somebody does make an appointment to see me, and then somebody in their unit finds out that they see them coming to the office or something. What I tell people is like, look, just tell them you came to complain about parking. And sorry if anybody here works for parking, but that tends to be, again, like I will listen to people talk about anything that they want to. I mean, within reason. I'm not a therapist, so I can't help you with your marital problems or something like that. That I can't really do, but like anything UNLV related, again, anything that prevents you, although I guess your marital problems could prevent you from being your happiest here. Basically anything UNLV related that's keeping you from being as happy and productive as you can, I can talk about. So I hope that answers the question. I feel like I rambled a little bit.
Thank you.
Cool. Again, I get excited talking about this stuff, so. Yeah, Tafara, anything else you want to add about what you've noticed about the office and what we do here?
Oh, excuse me. I think you covered most of it, a lot of it. That's pretty much what we see. I would say maybe the only other thing is that I think what I've noticed since I've been here in my short time is that people are mostly surprised when they come about just how productive the discussions can be. And I think that's very positive. I see that a lot where I think, especially with changing the minds of, people we're talking to and learning about the office, I noticed that transition of like just understanding and education and how it's just had a positive impact on the people who visit the office.
Yeah, I've got to say that's one thing I really find rewarding. I mean, there's a lot of things I like about the job. One of them is just sort of, it indulges my curiosity and I get to meet a lot of really interesting people, a lot more than I did before at UNLV. So I've gotten to meet so many people at UNLV who I really like and respect. I mean, the other one is more emotional, where it means a lot to me, where somebody comes in and when they come in, I can see they've got a cloud over them. We talk over things and, after the hour and a half is up, we probably haven't solved the problem, but they're feeling a lot better about it getting solved. And they just like, okay, I can cope with this now. I talk to somebody. So it's really good for that. Tafara, have you noticed that too?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what that's one of the biggest things. And that's what makes it just coming here rewarding every day, is because, I think the office is truly needed. And I think the people who have come through and accessed our services would agree. So that would be my main thing. I would just encourage anyone, even if you don't think this is the right resource, Dr. Schwartz has been here long enough where he might be able to even help you figure out what that resource is, which sometimes that happens where I get a call saying, I'm not sure if, I'm like, yes, it is. Yes, we are. Come on by. He'll help you. So I think that's also good too, that he's just so very knowledgeable. So it's like a well-rounded help that happens in our office.
Yeah, pretty much I'll do pretty much anything. I mean, the one thing where I did decline to get involved was where a community member called me and had somehow been referred. Apparently a few UNLV students owed him some money for some sort of transaction that didn't go the way it was supposed to go, and he wanted me to help collect it. And I said, well, that sounds like a police matter. He's like, well, I don't want to get the police involved with this. And I'm like, well, no, sorry, I can't, I can't collect your money for you. I'm not a debt collector, so I can't do that. So there's really nothing, again, and if you think, well, other people have much worse problems than I do, so what? You shouldn't, nobody should have problems at work. We should feel better about being at work. So again, there's nothing, I guess what I'm saying is, unless you want me to come and like help you collect money or something like that, there's really nothing that would be too inconsequential to bring in. Again, like that's literally my job.
Well, I would like to say thank you to both you, Dr. Schwartz, and Tafara for this amazing open forum. Some great questions came about. This is recorded. We will be putting it on our website for anyone who is interested in knowing what the Ombuds Office does. And are there any closing remarks?
I'm going to put into the chat our contact So if people do want to contact again, and I can even tell you, and Tafara can correct me if I'm wrong, I think I am not booked for anything for the rest of the day. So I do have plenty of work to do, but I'm open for the rest of the day, I think. So until about 5:30 is when I'm going to be leaving campus. So anybody who wants to talk, I've definitely got the time.
Yeah, give us a call, send us an email, and or contact us there. We're very responsive, and I'm very good at finding the tiny hole in your schedule that works with his schedule. As a classified staff member, I realize our time is valuable, so at least you have that here. If you get me, I know your struggle. So, but no, I really try to make sure that I can get the best appointment that works for everyone, the best format that works for you, to make sure that you can get your meeting in as soon as possible.
Wonderful. I appreciate that. And I know I'm going to be taking advantage of that and coming to talk with you, Dr. Schwartz, as far as going to set us up.
Cool.
So with that said, I would like to say thank you to everyone for coming to this open forum. And I'm going to stay on for just a few more minutes. Should someone want to continue, I will leave it open, but otherwise I say this open forum has been closed for the day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I am sorry I didn't have an agenda. I'll get better at it, I promise.
It was good. Thank you. You did a great job. It was a great meeting.
Oh, thank you. Once I got everybody the password, it was fantastic.
You might want to stop recording.
Fine.
All right.